I'm Yvonne Davis, your traveling warrior astrologer, and today we're going to be looking at the sun in Pisces. I'm going to talk about the meaning of the sun in Pisces, the energy, everything about Pisces, including the ascendant in Pisces. So if you have the sun or an ascendant in Pisces, then you will want to explore this video, or if you're just interested in the energy, because obviously it comes around 1 month every year. So let's take a look at the meaning of the sun in Pisces. And like I said, I'm also going to explore the ascendant in Pisces and the meaning of that. So the general energy of Pisces is the 12th house, because Pisces rules the 12th house. So if you want to look at your chart specifically, then you want to see if you either have the sun in Pisces, which you would probably know, or an ascendant in Pisces, which you may not know. Not everyone is familiar with their ascendant. If you don't have a chart, you can always become a patron. Even at the lowest tier, it's only $5 a month. You can get a free birth chart when you sign up at that tier, and you can join the Zoom meetings. So we get face-to-face conversations going in our astrology community on Zoom, and you can ask any questions you want, and I promise to answer your questions. So come on over if you want to do that. Now, getting back to this idea of the sun in Pisces, we want to look at the energy of the sun in Pisces, the ascendant in Pisces, and the 12th house. So if you need to look at your chart and see which sign rules your 12th house, then go ahead and do that. Because even if you don't have your sun in Pisces or ascendant in Pisces or sun in 12th house Pisces or anything like that, or for example, if you're in Aries, you would have Pisces in the 12th house, but everybody has Pisces somewhere in their chart, whether you have planets in that sign or not. It rules one of the houses of your chart, and everyone has a 12th house. So everyone has Pisces and everyone has a 12th house. So regardless of whether you have sun in Pisces or ascendant in Pisces, you have Pisces somewhere in your chart. You have the energy somewhere in your chart. So we'll talk first about Pisces and what it means to have the sun in Pisces or the ascendant in Pisces, but also understand that you have Pisces somewhere in your chart. So you want to know where it is in your chart, and you have a 12th house in your chart. So if you're looking at your chart, you can see if you have any planets in Pisces or if you have any planets in the 12th house. For example, I have Jupiter in the 12th house. So everything related to Jupiter is going to have a 12th house vibe about it, okay? Any planets you have in the 12th house will have a 12th house vibe about them. Or if, for example, you have Pisces in the 9th house, then everything about the 9th house is going to be flavored by that Pisces energy. So what is the Pisces energy? Well, first of all, it is ruled by two planets together. That those planets are Jupiter and Neptune. And you may wonder why the sign of Pisces has two planetary rulerships. That's because in ancient times, the astrologers could only see Jupiter. They couldn't see all the way out to Neptune. That came in more recent times. And once Neptune was discovered, then it became the ruler of Pisces. So a lot of astrologers still use both as rulers of Pisces. And so you can see that we have a lot of Piscean energy going on right now, because we have Jupiter in Pisces this year and Neptune in Pisces until probably about 2026. So the energy is super, super strong right now. And both Jupiter and Neptune being there, they're also direct, and their energy is stronger when it's direct. So the Pisces energy is just tremendous right now. And Pisces has the ability to take us into our psychic abilities. So intuition can become really strong at this time, but also the ability, like for example, intuition can be really strong, but also dreams and creativity. So in general, Pisces, again, it rules the 12th house. So you want to be thinking about not just what is Pisces, but what is the 12th house, because these things kind of cross over. And also Neptune, the energy of Neptune is very much this energy of Pisces and the 12th house. And so the zodiac completes with the 12th house. That's the last house. And it's the last and final house, so it rules endings. And sometimes it rules loss. For example, if we have anything, we don't necessarily feel it if it's not in the 12th house, but I at least want to give you this understanding. This house covers the final stages of a project, tying up loose ends, completions. It also rules the afterlife, old age, and surrender. It's also associated with separation from society, like for example, if you take a spiritual retreat or any kind of retreat where you sort of separate yourself from society. It's usually a spiritual retreat, but not always. But it's a time when you can sort of recover your energy and be alone in solitude. So it also rules solitude, and it rules monasteries, nunneries, and cloisters, because those are places where people go to retreat, and especially spiritual retreat. It has a strong shadow, so it also rules any kind of institutions that remove people from society, and so that can be hospitals, jails, prisons. It also rules things that are hidden. So it rules the occult, because occult, actually, the word occult means things that are hidden, things that are secret. So it rules hidden agendas and secret enemies. Now, I want to be very clear. When I'm talking about any sign, right now I'm talking about Pisces, and I'm talking about the 12th house and Neptune. I want you to understand that every single sign, house, and planet has a light side and a shadow side. So the light side is the side that brings us golden opportunity and empowers us. It gives us strength. It strengthens your ability to have intuition and possibly psychic abilities, to connect with otherworldly beings, okay? Beings in other dimensions. And it sort of like dissolves the boundary between this dimension and those dimensions. And that's why we're able to access information from other dimensions, other beings, other time frames. And so basically, we're not locked into this dimension when this energy is really strong in our lives, which it is right now. So you can have access to other information. The downside, which is the shadow side of Neptune, is that you don't always know what's true. So you have to be extremely grounded in sobriety. And we are seeing at this time, especially with Neptune in Pisces, the energy is really strong right now for misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, fake news, pushing forward a narrative. Narrative is the concept that you get to pick and choose what you focus on. Like when you're writing a resume, you don't talk about the job that you got fired from. You wouldn't mention that in a resume. You would focus on the job you had where you were the most successful in everything you did for that company that brought it success. You want to push forward a narrative of success. That's true of everyone. Everyone is pushing forward a narrative. And that narrative can either be what they want people to see about themselves, or sometimes it comes out of their fear, and they'll actually present a narrative of failure. Not because they want to be seen as a failure, but because it's so strong in their sense of identity. They may present themselves as a victim. That's their narrative. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's truly who they are. It's just that that's the the filter through which they are viewing their life. And so therefore it's the narrative that they put forward. And so it's important to understand that everything is a story. It's just that now, because Neptune is in Pisces, we can see it for what it is. Okay. And that can actually be extremely empowering to understand that everybody's putting forth a narrative. Everybody's putting forth a story. And it may be true or it may not be true, or maybe it's skewed in some way, maybe it's spun in some way. These are all elements of Pisces, the 12th house, and Neptune. But of course, we see some of that with Jupiter in Pisces as well, and the Sun in Pisces, and the Ascendant in Pisces. That Piscean energy is so incredibly strong right now. So you can see it at work in the world, and you can see it at work in your life. And if you have the Sun in Pisces, if you have an Ascendant in Pisces, or if you have any other planets in Pisces, then you are expressing that Piscean energy in that way, okay? So if you're a Pisces Sun or Ascendant, then you may be someone who actually has a very strong intuition and almost a psychic ability to go beyond the boundaries of this reality, of this dimension, to be able to see across time, to be clairvoyant. And if you are a Sun in Pisces or Ascendant in Pisces and you don't experience this about yourself, let me just tell you that right now it may be latent, but absolutely you have that ability if you have Sun in Pisces or Ascendant in Pisces. You just need to learn how to access it. And I want to tell you a little story about opening up my own Piscean intuition, because I have a very, very strong Pisces in my chart. Although my Sun is in Sagittarius and my Ascendant is in Cancer, both connect to the 9th house, Pisces. One, because I have a trine of my Ascendant to Saturn in Pisces, but also because my Sun is in Sagittarius, and therefore it is ruled by Jupiter, which rules the 9th house, Pisces. So I have a very, very strong Pisces in my chart. And I discovered that I had psychic abilities that I wasn't aware of. And it was actually pointed out to me when I was a child, and it was beginning to be developed, but then the person who was mentoring me passed away. And I sort of put that aside until I was 16, and these abilities spontaneously opened up again. I'm not going to go into the whole story there, but someday I actually will make a video and talk about how that happened for me. But basically, I kind of knew it as a child, but I ignored it because people didn't talk about it like it was normal. So it went to sleep in me. Then when I had this mentor when I was around 8 years old, it began to wake up again. But then that person died and it went to sleep again. And then when I was 16, I actually went to an event at a place called the Psychic Mansion in Denver. I don't know if it still exists, but I went there when I was 16, and I encountered other psychics at that place, and they helped me to reawaken my powers, and they were spontaneously awoken. And so again, I'm going to go into the whole story about that in another video, but I just want you to understand that if you have Sun in Pisces or Ascendant in Pisces or a strong Pisces in your chart, which means that you have a very strong placement or planets in Pisces, you have these abilities. And if you're not aware of it, then they are latent in you and they can be awoken. So keep that in mind. The other thing that I can say about Pisces is that it also is very good for creativity, imagination, fantasy. If you work in the arts or want to work in the arts, film is ruled by Neptune. The whole film industry, Hollywood, it's all ruled by Neptune. Poetry, writing, journal writing, and connecting with your subconscious. All of these things are ruled by Pisces and Neptune and the 12th house. So again, find out where Pisces is in your chart, even if you don't have Sun or Ascendant in Pisces. and find out if you have any planets in the 12th house, because those planets will be influenced by this energy, okay? So there is a tremendous amount of benefit from connecting with this energy, as long as you can do so being very grounded in sobriety. And I say that because of the fact that the Piscean energy dissolves boundaries. And that means it can send you far off into other dimensions. It can open up your psychic abilities. It can allow you to connect with otherworldly beings, beings in other dimensions, and to get information from those dimensions, like across time and space. That's why when we talk about opening up your psychic abilities or your intuition, it's because you are accessing information from other dimensions because the boundaries have dissolved, okay? But there is also a danger in that, because sometimes when we're so open, we can be influenced by timelines that aren't necessarily going to become part of our reality. But all possibilities exist out there. That's why when we open up to the Piscean energy, we can also become extremely creative, imaginative, and visionary, and we have access to the fantasy elements. If you're interested in writing fantasy, if you have a strong Pisces in your chart, you may be very good at writing fantasy novels. Or you may be interested in magic or the occult. And all of these things are ruled by Pisces and the 12th house and Neptune. But the reason why you need to be so grounded is because you don't want to get lost in those other dimensions. You don't want to be so open to these otherworldly beings that they could actually influence you in a way that could be destructive. So it's really, really important to stay grounded in sobriety. And what I mean by that is to understand your chakras, to have very healthy and balanced chakras so that they're not too open or too tightly closed or blocked. You want to get them clear and balanced so that the energy can run through you down into the earth and get grounded in the earth. That's what I mean by being grounded in sobriety. But I also mean it in the way that we normally think of sobriety as being sober. That's a Saturnine concept. Saturn is almost literally the opposite of the Neptune Jupiter energy. It grounds you in sobriety. And so I mean that both in terms of the way you're thinking. You need to have a skeptic in you as well to help balance this otherworldly, visionary element and energy of Pisces in the 12th house and Neptune. It helps to balance it. It helps to keep you grounded. It helps to give you structure. When all of the boundaries have dissolved, you need to stay grounded in this reality, because you're still going to have to come back to this reality. And this is also why we are in the midst of the opioid epidemic right now, because Neptune in Pisces is making that Piscean energy so intense right now that some people cannot stay grounded in reality, and they have lost themselves to drugs. And that includes alcohol, and actually includes any kind of addiction. You can lose yourself in a relationship. There's relationship addiction. You can lose yourself in shopping, in food, in sex, in gaming, and the internet. I mean, all of these things, although they're not actual chemicals that you put into your body, they still trigger chemicals in your brain, and people get addicted to those kinds of activities and behaviors. So Neptune and the 12th house and Pisces also rule all forms of addiction, all forms of escape. And that's what I mean by the shadow side, okay? Because every single planet, sign, and house has both a light side, which brings you power, it empowers you, and it has a shadow side. And that shadow side weakens you until you are able to work through those weaknesses and any wounding that occurred related to those issues in your life. So keep that in mind, because everyone, almost virtually everyone, I think this is true across the board, every single person on the planet has the capacity to be addicted to something. Okay. I've learned that myself because, as I said, I have a very strong Pisces, and I have Jupiter in the 12th house, and I grew up in a family that suffered from all kinds of addictions. And so I fell into that pattern too, and I had to work through that. That was my wounding that I had to work through and empower myself by working through that. And so I have a very deep understanding of addiction. And what I basically did was, when I understood everybody falls into some kind of addiction, even if you don't recognize it, like maybe it's just comfort food, or maybe it's just watching a little too much television. And I'll admit right now, I have an addiction to Netflix. We all have some kind of addiction. And addiction is basically something that you go to relieve discomfort, okay? That could be smoking, it could be television, it could be shopping too much, eating comfort food. There are lots and lots and lots of addictions that we don't even recognize because they're socially acceptable and they're not destroying our lives. They may be taking a little too much from us, too much of our time and energy, but they're not destroying our lives. And I still call that addiction because it's still something we go to relieve discomfort, and something that we're giving our time to that probably we do need some of it, but maybe it's just we're giving it just a little too much of our time and energy to that. And we all always have that risk of crossing that line into it becoming destructive. So, as an example, lots of people drink alcohol, maybe have a glass of wine with dinner, or have a beer on the weekend or something like that, and that's totally fine and it's socially acceptable. But then someone can fall down that slippery slope into alcoholism. And just because you drink alcohol doesn't mean that's going to happen. I'm just saying the potential is always there for anything that you're escaping into as a way of getting out of discomfort can have that slippery slope. And so I still call it addiction. Doesn't necessarily mean it's destructive. Okay, it's just that that potential is always there to slide down that slippery slope into something that could become potentially destructive. That's the shadow side. Okay, so when you're on that edge, understand that great benefit can come from it, and there's always the potential to slide down that slippery slope, because that is the nature of Pisces, Neptune, and the 12th house. In fact, it's the nature of any sign, planet, and house, but it's especially strong with Pisces, Neptune, and the 12th house. And I think that's because of the very nature of Pisces energy, and the very nature of the 12th house, and the very nature of Neptune. That the Neptune energies are unusually shadow oriented, but you don't have to fall into the shadow. Okay, you just need to be aware that it is there. So keep that in mind, because of the fact that with the sun in Pisces, and it's, of course, it's, it's there for a month, just like every other sign has the sun in it for 1 month of the year. But with Jupiter there for a year and Neptune there until probably around 2026, that energy is going to be extremely strong. If you are interested in doing electional astrology, and electional astrology is when you elect a specific day and time to take an action, because then that action has this chart as its birth chart. Okay, every single action has a birth chart. And so if you like to do that, and many people who study astrology use electional astrology, they elect specific days and times to take actions, to give that action a birth chart. I would highly recommend at this time that you use the hours between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. because at this time, this month, this is when you can get the Ascendant in Pisces. And when it's conjunct the Sun, in other words, when the Sun is on the Ascendant, or when the Ascendant is conjunct Jupiter, so Jupiter is on the Ascendant, or when the Ascendant is conjunct Neptune, so Neptune is on the Ascendant, it magnifies that energy. I love taking actions in the early morning at this time, between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., especially when the Ascendant is conjunct Jupiter. So Jupiter is rising on the Ascendant, and it just makes that Jupiterian energy so strong. And that is a perfect electional chart, especially if you can find it with the moon in a good position as well. So if this interests you, please do come on over to my Patreon channel and check it out. Like I said, the first tier is only $5 a month. That gets you a free birth chart. All you have to do is message me, and you can also come to the bi-monthly Zoom meetings where we all get together in the astrology community online on Zoom, and we can see each other face to face and talk to each other face to face on Zoom, and you can get all your questions answered there. Or if you want to learn more about astrology on your own, you can take my self-paced basic astrology course. It's always available as well, and I'll put a link in the description box below. So anytime you want to become a patron, there's always a link in the description box below. Anytime you want a reading, there's always a link in the description box below. And anytime you want to take basic astrology, there's always a link in the description box below. So please check it out. And again, if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications so you can make sure you always get notified of my videos. Please do click like on this video. Thank you so much to those of you who have clicked like on this video. Share with friends and family on social media so we can build this community, and leave your comments below. And thank you everyone for your kind comments. I so appreciate it. I appreciate any support that you give me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye-bye.